I'm Bea.
And I'm Sam.
And we're two best friends who like to talk shit about smut, wingspan,
and sometimes books.
Join us every Wednesday for a new episode. Hi everyone, it's Bea here. Just wanted to come on and firstly say hello and welcome to this week's episode of Bride. We really hope you enjoy it. You'll probably hear from the first 10 minutes of the episode we talk about we've been having some audio issues the last sort of week, and we actually recorded this episode and episode 11 back to back. Couldn't use them because of audio issues and re-recorded them. However, we still face those issues during recording. They just weren't as bad as the first time. We're working really hard to try and fix those issues. However, we couldn't sort of re-record the episodes for a third time because, as you probably know, Sam is now away for 2 weeks. So I want to just sort of, I guess, give you the heads up that there is some echo issues during this week's episode. And we still hope you really enjoy this episode of Bride. And we really look forward to seeing you next week for our ACOTAR 6 wishlist episode.
Episode 10.
Episode 10 again. Again. Do you wanna talk about what happened?
Yeah. So if this sounds rehearsed, it's because
it is.
It is. We've already recorded this once.
We have, yeah.
And we cocked up the audio.
It is what it is. We live and learn. There's so many. It was our first ever time with 2 mics, as you can see, and there's just things that we can't almost prepare for, I guess.
Yeah, I just think we thought we were technological enough that we could do the gain and everything and it would be fine, and then we did 2 hours of recording.
We did.
Then when we listened to them, because why would you listen to the first hour? Just carry on for another.
In our defence, we did test. It was fine. We had
the timid testers, though, aren't we?
Because I think whenever we have tested, we've never had issues.
Yeah.
So we just test. If it's fine, we're good to go. And I've got a feeling you did actually play back the first episode we recorded.
No, I don't think I did.
It doesn't. So it actually doesn't happen until 8 minutes in.
Yeah. So basically, Bethan's mic picks me up, so there's
the gain was too high. Yeah.
Echo over the whole recording. And we were gonna publish as is, but I thought it might give people a headache.
Yeah.
And we might lose some followers.
Yeah.
So we're re-recording. Here we are.
Yeah, we tried to fix it post recording, and just basically anything that would fix it. Any application, anything meant that it was effectively like erasing Sam's voice completely. Yeah. So it was either not hear Sam, hear an echo, and we agreed that it probably would make people feel a bit sick, or just re-record, because not that I'm preferring episodes, but we actually really enjoyed the 2 recordings we did. I was really proud of them.
Yeah.
They were 2 lovely episodes.
Yeah, they went really well. We didn't waffle. We did well for timing, and then... Yeah, and then that happened, so...
But now these will be even better because we've done them once.
They're rehearsed.
So we're here again to re-record Bride, and we do need to re-record then our ACOTAR 6 wishlist episode.
Yes.
But that will be, again, this is irrelevant, but that'll be later this week.
Yeah. So,
do you want to do a little social media update first?
Yeah, what are you reading at the moment?
Oh, what am I reading at the moment? I'm still on 6 of Crows. So when we obviously recorded this on Monday, I had barely started it, and I really wasn't vibing.
Shit-talking it.
I was shit-talking it. It's very, very different to what we read in the past. It's kind of what I expected, but also really not what I expected. And I was a couple of chapters in. I was really not vibing it, but I knew I needed to finish it because we're going to do an episode on it. However, it's now Wednesday, and the angsty Kaz Brecker has introduced himself, and along with Inej, I feel like the J is pronounced. Yeah. And I'm now I've literally got 20% left. I've smashed it out. Cannot put it down. Absolutely love it. I agree, lots of POVs, which I don't love, because I just don't think it's necessary. because it's all third person, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm in it, and I keep texting you like, there's so much angsty yearning in this. I love it. I'm obsessed. So that's what I'm on. What are you reading? Anything?
Crooked Kingdom.
Oh, you started it.
Yeah, the second book.
Ooh.
So I'm like, obviously they're split into like, the black pages.
Yeah,
I've gone past the first one. I'm on the second part of the book.
I don't really get that.
Me either.
Because it doesn't feel like there's any definition. The story just continues.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's like a cliffhanger at the end of every one. It's just...
Because we get it in ACOTAR series, don't we? Like, I think...
Prison City is split into parts.
Yeah, and I feel like Mr. Fury is...
No.
So, is it not?
No.
I'm sure there's like a section called The House of Wind. Maybe it's just the chapter title. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
I know Crescent City definitely is.
Mm-hmm. I don't mind it because I feel like in Crescent City it does sort of indicate a start and end of a segment. Yeah. Whereas in this it's like I get to it and I'm like, well, we're just carrying on where we were. But that's okay. So Sam, did you start on this one or did you start on Crooked Kingdom and went back and did this one?
I started on Six of Crows and went back and did this then afterwards.
we really like drag each other along episode to episode when it comes to prep, because some episode it never at no point whenever you've listened to this have both of us prepped. No. It's either one or the other, but I actually think that works really well because sometimes there's just stuff that I don't think it's ever lacked.
No, and I think sometimes, like, if you're prepared and I'm not, your notes sort of prompt me and makes me think of things that maybe I wouldn't have thought of if I was trying to prepare for it.
Yeah, like so Promise in Peridot came up today.
Promise of Peridot.
Oh my God, Promise of Peridot. And you kind of drove that one mainly from the, like, you had more questions. I don't think I had anything prepared for it. And I actually loved some of your questions and the stuff that you'd looked into was like when you were mentioning about like people not loving the dual POV in it. Yeah. I hadn't come across that at all, see? So it was actually really nice because like you said, that was a conversation that hadn't even like entered my mind that people wouldn't, because it was my favourite thing about that book.
Having Kane's point of view. Yeah, I agree.
So you are so prepared for this one and for Six of Crows.
Yeah, and I will be for Crooked Kingdom as well.
I can't wait. I love this new dynamic where
I'm a literature teacher
and I'm an absolute messy fucking bitch, which is the case in most of life, like generally 10 times ago. But I'm thoroughly excited. And do we want to do a little social media update?
Yeah, so we hit 6.8k followers.
And so we've done a few of these social media updates, but they've always had to be cut for various reasons over the last few weeks. There's been different reasons. Either the episode's too long or like there's been background noise. So we did do a full update on like when we got 5k, we talked about our giveaway or we have to giveaway. We can say giveaway on here, can't we? You don't have to refer to it as a schmiveaway here.
Nobody's going to take us down.
Yeah, no one's going to cancel us. So we have hit 6.8 followers on TikTok, which is insane. Something insane like 21 something K likes.
21.4k now. 21.4k likes.
And we are literally on the, potentially we might have even hit it since we've started recording, on the precipice of 300 downloads.
Oh, let me check.
We're on like 98 as of this morning because of our episode 9 came out. Promise. 298, yeah. So, and we literally only hit 250 like last week, I think.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned this before, could have been Monday, could have been a previous episode, who knows? Mm-hmm. We've been here so many times now. That we're really surprised that when we release new episodes, it isn't just the new episode that gets the views or the listens, I guess.
It's almost as if putting out a new episode gets us traction just to our page in general.
Yes.
And people are going back and starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
And obviously now, like, we're 10 episodes in, so, you know, there's a lot of content. Maybe in the beginning they were like, oh, there's only one episode, I won't start now.
Yeah.
In case I want to listen to them more.
Yeah.
Whereas now they've got 10 episodes worth. If they, you know, if they read the same genres as us and have read what we've read, it's quite easy for them to just go from one to the next.
Yeah, because like, I think randomly a couple of weeks ago, like Fourth Wing got a really big surge, even though it was released like quite a while ago. And I think that's really nice why, and again, probably something to mention, that we like mixing the book reviews with other episodes.
Yeah.
Because it allows people to still listen when you haven't read the book. Because we always say this about page turners, is like we always want to listen, but we can't, because I think Fate Inked in Blood is the only one that they've done.
They did quite a funny episode on book slumps.
Ah, okay. I haven't listened to that.
Because Liv is like, so if you've been in a book slump and want to know how to get out of it, here's some top tips that might not help at all. And, like,
so funny.
Just the way
They are so funny. They are.
Yeah. It was that's a good episode, the book slumps.
So this episode obviously is Bride, but then next episode, which we need to re-record again,
it's going to be sort of like a Christmas list,
a wish list, yeah.
ACOTAR, what we want to see in the next act, or what we don't want to see in the next ACOTAR.
Yeah.
Hopefully some tips for Sarah J. Maas, as if she needs our input.
Our biggest fan, our number one listener. She's obviously you're listening, of course you do. And I really thought so. Going off a bit of tangent, but it's just what I've seen on social media. So it's actually Calamai today.
Oh,
and happy Calamai. And people really believe that today's the day we get an ACOTAR 6 update. Because she's been really hot on social media. She actually posted yesterday, I don't know if you saw.
About her dog.
Yeah, a little rescue picture. So cute. Because all her books are dedicated to a rescue dog. I love that. As soon as I see her name pop up on my feed, I'm like, literally.
As soon as I saw she'd done a story, I was like,
I could vomit, because I'm like, oh, is this it? Because I remember when the House of Flame and Shadow, when it just happened, and I wasn't expecting it. Was like a random fucking day in November or something, and it just was like my palms started sweating, and I was like fumbling on my phone, like, oh, it's coming, it's happening. And yeah, I think it's imminent. We said this, that I do believe.
We might have had an announcement before we do our wish list episodes.
Should we just do a quick check just in case nothing's happened right now?
Yeah, you might have a live update from us.
I can't see anything. Yeah, what if that was the case? Like,
imagine.
I think when it does oh no, nothing. We've had nothing since yesterday. Okay. So this book that we're doing next, Bride
by Ali Hazelwood.
Yeah, which is why we're here. You can see it on the shelf. This was a bit of a random purchase for both of us, wasn't it? Like, I just saw this in Tesco's. It was cheap. I'd heard, kind of, I say good things about it. Nothing negative, but nothing like, oh my gosh, it's a must read. Because she isn't an author that we would typically purchase.
No, she's very much in the romance genre.
Yes.
And typically not the kind of book that we would read.
No.
She does the Love Hypothesis.
Which I've seen her books all over Book Talk, like people are obsessed with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just not our cup of tea.
Yeah, it's that balance between romance and fantasy, isn't it? Like, we're reading a fantasy book now that doesn't have much romance, so we're missing the romance.
But for us, I think we've said this before, that we would rather the fantasy than the romance. Yeah, like, because as much as we just spoke about this, that like Six of Crows has very little romance, there's just enough in it for us to keep us going. But for us, we would rather read an all-out romance than an all-out fantasy rather than an all-out romance.
Yeah, because we quite like the magic systems, the fae, the different like mythical beings and things like that. That's more of our gig. So this is Ali Hazelwood's actual first dip into fantasy. Yes. So her other two books, like we said, are just kind of straight up romances. We both got this on the cheap in Tesco, kind of the main reason why we bought it. Yeah. And honestly, I'd seen, so even before I saw Rachel, a friend of mine on Book Talk, who had reviewed this. Yeah. I'd seen the things about it being particularly, I don't know, dirty, the word? Steamy, and it being a new take on steamy. Yes. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. I bought it with no intention of it being a read I was going to do anytime soon. And I don't know, we both just kind of thought, oh. It's quite a small book as well.
Yeah, it is.
So it's quite easy to just
standalone, which we knew it was going to be standalone, wasn't a part of a series. And yeah, we just kind of thought, let's just give it a go. And I literally devoured it in 24 hours. Yeah, same. Ate it up. Couldn't put it down. So much fun. And I think we said this again, probably said this last time, but not that you would know, that I was a bit apprehensive because kind of what Ali Hazelwood has done with this is the same thing as I guess Rebecca Yarros did, where they are typically typically romance writers and decided to write a romance with a fantasy twist. I wouldn't call them fantasy books with romance. So the predominant sort of driving factor is still the romance. And I think what Ali Hazelwood has done so well is she's realised that she's still a romance author at the end of the day. Whereas I think Rebecca Yarros tried to take on just too much.
Yeah, the world that Rebecca Yarros is trying to build is far too large. Whereas Ali Hazelwood, having it just like different territories between the humans, the wares, and the vampires, like we can understand that.
Yeah.
But I think Rebecca Yarros tries to take on this mammoth world, like with a map, and you know, like it was just too much.
Yes,
maybe
agreed.
For somebody who isn't a fantasy writer.
Yeah, completely agree. And I had very low expectations for this. Yep. Like I had no expectations, and I probably think that's a reason why I ended up enjoying it so much.
Yeah, when we overhype a book, it falls flat.
Agreed.
Usually.
But then the one that didn't do that was Promise of Peridot.
Yeah. Oh, you said it right.
Yay! I wouldn't say we overhyped it, but we were like gasping for that. We were so ready for it.
Yeah.
And it absolutely did not disappoint.
No.
But this was just a really fun read. So we get introduced to this character, Misery, who is a vampire.
Yeah, do you want to address the elephant in the room?
Oh, go on.
Your name.
Oh,
Misery.
Yeah, I knew it was coming because, again, from like reviews, that had been some people's comments that they didn't love about it was her name. I didn't mind it, but...
Okay, then how do you feel that her name is Misery and her twin brother's name is Owen?
Weird as fuck. But like...
I think you said it on Monday, like if his name was Sorrow, then it would just make sense.
Or just something a bit like fantasy-esque, you know?
Owen and Misery. I feel like her dad was setting her up to fail from the moment she was born.
Literally.
He knew, like, oh, I got two of them. Yeah. She's going to be the one that I just fuck off.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, Misery. I just couldn't get on board with it. And, like, I think you said this on Monday. If she had a nickname, if she went by, like, Missy or something, it would be easier, but I don't know, I just found it really fucking I just thought, what a way to set your child up for failure, calling her fucking Misery. Yeah,
I agree. I was that was really weird when I got the twin, and the fact that they're twins as well. Obviously, they're not just siblings, they're twins.
Yeah.
It is a bit weird.
So you named them at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, and I did expect her to like not. Even though that was her name, I did expect for her not to be called that. Like, I thought she would go with a nickname, but she doesn't. It actually didn't bother me, honestly. Like, it didn't bother me. I thought it would, but it didn't. And like, as a narrator, like, she makes, I think we said this, but like, she makes a lot of quips about it. Like,
she's really funny. She says, once they get married, she says like, oh, you're bound to a lifetime of misery.
Yeah,
it was actually quite witty and quite funny.
And she is a really witty and funny narrator.
She is.
And I think, again, when I first started the first couple of chapters, she's very like quick, and I thought, oh, is this going to get a bit like, am I going to get fed up with this?
Yeah,
because it was so almost like so witty. Which I find some people get an issue with that with Bryce as a main character in Crescent City. I love it about Bryce. I don't think you can get enough of her being like sarcastic. In Crescent City 3, I don't feel like this is a spoiler, but like maybe just in case, when they like high five and say Team Caves, people really didn't like that. I thought it was fucking hilarious.
I think Bryce is just hilarious in general.
Yeah, I didn't think she was like any less funny in CC3 than she was in 1 and 2.
No, I just think like the whole book fell flat.
Yeah, it was just
annoyed by the book in general, not by Bryce.
But no, agreed. But a lot of people comment that like Sarah J. Maas amped up the kind of like sassiness, and it was too much. And I was worried that like that was going to be the case with Misery. But actually, do you know what? Even after like half the book, I was like, she's really rams the sassiness down your throat. But I'm really enjoying it because I think we said this is such a fun read. It's a short read. There's not a huge amount of world building. It doesn't take much concentration to get through it. And then it's like, you just don't really care that she's like a bit sarky. I don't know, it's probably the way to put it. Yeah. And I think that it being set in kind of the real world was really nice.
Yeah,
because it's like it's like our normal world with a bit of vampires and a bit of werewolf.
Yeah, and I just think, like, because she's not a fantasy writer, I know we've already said this, but then she didn't have to do that big world building, because I think it's set in North America.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And it's set in modern day, so, like, we understand, you know? Like, you don't have to world build about like how they transport around and things like that. Like, no, they get in a car, they have mobile phones,
and I think that's why like it was such a success, because she didn't set herself up to have to build a big world that maybe, and when I say she's never done, like, I don't know this author's history, she might be like a secret fantasy author, but in terms of what we've seen, like say Rebecca Yarros, right? Rebecca Yarros might have always wanted to be a fantasy author, and she's just written romance, so it's not, I'm not saying that they're not qualified to do it. I just think that when you're like, it's your first kind of like public release of a book, for all we know, Rebecca Yarros could be writing secret fanfics on AO3 for the last 25 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and it's not saying that she couldn't do it. I just think that's why this succeeds so well, is for their first sort of dip in the fantasy world. They don't try and do too much. But as a fantasy reader, it was still enough fantasy that I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't too light. Mm-hmm. It was just enough. And so, like, I guess Misery's story is literally fucking miserable, because the whole premise is that she's effectively twice in her life been given over as this, like, what's the word that they use? Collateral. Between, so that the relations between werewolves, vampires and humans is very strained between all three across the board.
Yeah. Well, they all just fucking kill each other.
Yeah, they all just want to kill each other. And every year, every century, I don't know what the frequency is, but they effectively give a child of like meaning to each of the sort of like political parties. So for the vampires, Misery's dad is like the councillor effectively.
Yes.
And then there's an equivalent from the humans, and they swap. So they give the human child to the vampires and vice versa, and they have to live for like until they're 18, I think it is.
It is.
And the idea is that like if there were to be any kind of tension, that neither side would act, because they know the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to kill the child.
Yeah, but
collateral.
The collateral. But what I've got from this book is it doesn't really seem like her dad cares for her all that much.
He couldn't have given a shit.
I feel like he gave her as collateral, knowing that, well, if they kill her, they kill her. Fuck her.
100%.
I genuinely don't think he would have cared if the humans killed her.
No, without a doubt. And so she gets sent as collateral. She's there till she's 18. It's kind of explained that like she doesn't do very well in the human world, and they actually get her like an adoptive sister who's a human,
Serena,
which is like the driver for the plot. So Serena's gone missing, and that's kind of like the drive for the whole plot, is that she's disappeared. She was an investigative
journalist.
And she's gone missing, and Misery's looking for her. Mm-hmm. And in that time, Misery's dad decides, what a great idea to build werewolf vampire relations, and let's marry off my daughter to the head of the werewolves, who just so happens to be kind of the person that Misery's been looking for with regards to Serena's disappearance.
Yeah, so when you were reading this, what did you think had happened to Serena? Like,
I was convinced she was dead.
Same.
And I think the actual payoff with Serena, what happens to Serena, again, if you're listening to this, you knew there was going to be spoilers, but when we find out that Serena isn't dead, it was so far, we got so far into the book that I was like, there's no way she's alive.
Yeah. I really did not expect it to be Misery's father.
I know.
Because she was investigating the werewolves.
Yes.
I thought, well, I don't usually follow the obvious trail of thought. Like, I try to think outside the box, but I genuinely thought, like, oh, well, she's just the werewolves.
I didn't think it would be Low, obviously, because we realised that from quite early on that he's not a bad guy.
Such a green flag.
Yeah, but I definitely thought it was somebody within the werewolf, like, community. There's a lot of shifty characters. We said about, like, what was that guy called? The kind of his, like, friend from Cohen, and then there's like the ex-Alpha's wife, who they kind of pin Emil, who they pin as the baddie from the get-go. I was convinced it was going to be one of them. I feel like Emil was too obvious, because that's who they thought, they were convinced that it was going to be her from the beginning. But I was just I just didn't see it coming.
I was like, oh well, Serena's dead.
And I really like that she wasn't dead though.
Yeah, and I do. And like at one point Lo sort of says to Misery, like, well, what if she's just run off? What if she's just packed up and left? And the only reason Misery thinks that she didn't do that is because of the cat.
Yeah, she adopts a cat like a day before she goes missing.
Yeah, and I can't remember what she names it, but obviously Anna...
I don't think she does. She doesn't name it. That's the joke. And Anna, the little girl...
Names it like Sparkles?
Yeah, something ridiculous. Sprinkles? Yeah, Sprinkles. Yeah, something amazing. Stupid.
Okay. So one thing that was quite interesting in this book that Ali Hazelwood does is she doesn't sort of follow the traditional traits of vampires and werewolves. So like Misery feeds from a blood bag, like the garlic doesn't affect them. The werewolves aren't like beasts.
Yeah.
Who are like ripping people's throats out. How did you find that aspect of it?
Yeah, it was really nice. And I think this book doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think that's a prime example of it, is that like there's still some typical kind of vampire werewolf tropes, because otherwise what are we here for? You know, like that you still want to feel like it's a vampire werewolf book. But I think that the fact that like, I mean, Misery does obviously feed from Low, but it's more of like a sexual thing rather than rather than a she needs to thing. I actually thought it was really funny. And I just think like it's a prime example. This book does not take itself too seriously. I think Ali Hazelwood doesn't try and be too clever with the twists. They're not like overcomplicated. They're just like funny little quirks of like, oh, we're literally just humans with a slight, like, I think she has like a gland or something. It's like the only difference between a vampire and a human. And yeah, I just thought that was really funny. You know, it was enough that it kept you interested, but it wasn't trying to be something, it wasn't like rewriting the book, you know?
Yeah. And I think she talks about like some of the rituals they have at certain times of year, like at Halloween.
Yeah.
They like put out garlic and stuff. And she's like, it literally doesn't
make a difference.
Me.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that was like different to things that we usually read is like they had different coloured bloods. I think his blood was green, her blood was purple, and then Huma blood was obviously red.
Yeah.
And they talk about like after the battle, they call it something like where there was a big like bust up between.
Oh, the previous, like when they gave a bride to the werewolves. They name it after like a flower or something though, don't they? I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
And she talks about it being like a smatter of like red and purple blood everywhere.
Yeah.
No, green and purple blood everywhere.
Which is kind of gross when like, I mean, not that a horny blood drinking scene is particularly my thing, but like when she talks about like drinking Lowe's blood and then she's like, oh yeah, so hot, how green my lips are. And it's like, oh, green. I just feel like of all the colours, maybe there was a bit of a sexy colour than green.
Yeah, because obviously you've already said this, but you've said about when he blushes with a tinge of green.
Yeah.
And like that just makes me think like he looks sick.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. It reminded me of, I don't know, a bit freaky.
For the wedding, they like dust her in green and like certain.
Yeah, they put like green ritual runes where like the wolf glands would be, because obviously that's another scene where he has to scent her and rub himself
his spine,
and under the ears, and where a werewolf gland would be.
Okay, so talking about scenting. Did you think that Lo thought she smelled bad?
No.
Yeah. Like we all knew, other than you, Misery.
Yeah, everyone knew. No, I knew that like from the get-go in there, because the wedding scene is obviously literally the first scene that we get. I knew that his like being fucking weird in that scene was not him being disgusted. He was rock hard for her. I knew.
Yeah. And did you believe that he'd sent his mate away?
Kind of, but I knew that like there would be some kind of like twist in it that would allow them to be together. But I did believe that, like, because again, I think when Lo explains the like concept of mates in this book is that it's not a two-way thing that we're used to seeing. It's a one-way thing. So you can believe somebody is your mate without being reciprocated.
Yeah.
And he says it's not something that the other person has to accept, and they might feel nothing for the other person.
And they might not even know that you feel something for
and like
them.
As a mate, you could go your whole life almost like yearning and it never be a reciprocation. Whereas like in ACOTAR, spoiler for ACOTAR, even when like Elaine doesn't want to be Lucien's mate, she still has that like physical draw to him, which she can't help. It just is what it is. So I thought that would be the case, that maybe like Lo thought that Gabby was his mate, but it wasn't reciprocated, or vice versa, that Gabby thought that Lo was her mate, not reciprocated, which allowed him to be with Misery. But then I think after the scene we get where like Misery goes to meet Gabby with Lo and Owen is there, and they kind of have like this mutual like catch up, and he's like all over Misery in front of Gabby. I was like, no, 100. Like at that point, then I was like, now they're mates. That they gotta be.
I didn't think she was his mate. I never thought that Gabby was his mate, but. Only because of things that he said when he started like explaining what mates were.
Definitely.
But also just to say, episode 10 out of 10, that we haven't not spoke about ACOTAR.
Yeah, was it? Sorry, you mean 0 out of 10?
0. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
so
0 out of 10.
There's been 0 episodes where we speak about ACOTAR. Every episode, we can't help it.
Sorry.
We
are who we are.
The title is the title.
So talking about Owen, when he brought Lo in handcuffs in one of those final scenes, did you believe that he had betrayed Misery.
Yes.
Yeah, same.
I was, because that, like we just mentioned, that meeting that they have, and I think that little meeting with Gabby and Owen and Lo and Misery is where Owen tells Gabby that he's going to stage like a coup against their father, who's like the head of the vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was, tells Misery, and I was convinced that like he's double crossing her and he wants her to like he's going to paint her as the one who's like staging this like overthrow. And so when he brought Lo in handcuffs in that final scene, I was like, oh, typical. Like I knew this was going to happen.
Bastard.
I knew he was a little snake. He's very, like, she describes him as very power hungry, quite like a snaky character.
Yeah.
So, and that's why obviously their dad prefers him to Misery, because he says that he's more his son than like Misery is.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like he didn't give Misery a chance to be his daughter.
No, he definitely doesn't. But I think that, yeah, I was 100% convinced, like, oh, he's fucked you. I knew this was going to happen. So actually, for it to be flipped again, and I think for Owen to turn out to be, I say a good guy, but like he was always looking out for Misery, that was really sweet. I think their relationship is actually really lovely.
Yeah, I agree.
Really cute.
So also in that scene, we get the betrayal from Mick, who is like an older were.
One of like Lo's inner circle sort of thing.
Yeah, one of his seconds.
Yes.
And he is sort of one of the people who looks after Misery and watches over her.
Yeah.
So did you expect that betrayal?
I did. I think there was too much emphasis on him being like so kind to her and the good guy. Yeah. It was too obvious.
I didn't expect it personally, but only because like, I don't know, I just saw him as like a granddad figure.
Yeah.
Like he was like I don't know, I just thought like he was really nice to her, and he was one of the only ones who was nice to her.
Yeah, I think what was interesting, what was again refreshing about that is that when Mick does betray them, he doesn't want to do it. It's not because he's the big bad.
Her dad's got his son,
Misery's dad,
who we think is dead.
So I think that like you can tell that when the reveal happens, that Mick isn't like proud of it. He's not happy about what he's done, but he just feels cornered because he's scared that his son's going to get killed.
Yeah.
So I actually thought like, I knew it would be him because I think there's another one of Lo's seconds that's described as being really mean. And she says all the way, I think she calls him like Ken Doll or something. I don't think she knows his name.
Oh, we do get a name right at the end. She calls him Ken Doll. It's really funny.
And there was too much of an emphasis on him being really mean and Mick being really nice. And it was obviously going to be like roles reversed. But yeah, I you know, it was just sad. Like I felt sorry for Mick, you know?
Yeah. So the ending of this book, we sort of get Cohen turning at Lo's house and Serena is there.
Yeah.
Because Serena is half werewolf, half human. That's how she ends up embroiled in all this stuff with her journalism, is because she's looking into the were-human crossover. And when Cohen sees her, it's a bit like when Reese's Mason Bond snaps into place. He has a bit of a stumble and he's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's heavily implied that she's his mate. Does that open it up for a second book? Could we get a Cohen-Serena love interest book?
I think that, again, from what I know of Ali Hazelwood, and this isn't like a disrespect to her as an author, but she's a bit of like a one-hit wonder type of author, and that could be like a publishing thing. But I think she's the type of author that writes a book that you can pick up on your holiday. It's one book and that's it, and you're done. Yeah. She doesn't write sequels from what I can understand. So do I think that would I be surprised if there was no sequel to this? No, I wouldn't. I think it is what it is.
Yeah.
However, I think the way that she left it with Serena and Cohen, it just gave her a little bit of a something that if she wanted to continue, she could. Like maybe in a few years she might decide to, like, I don't know, self-publish something and like do a novella or whatever. So I feel like I'm on the fence about that. Like I wouldn't be surprised if this was standalone. I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
But has she left it purposefully a little bit open-doory in terms of other characters, not obviously the main characters?
Yeah.
So she could revisit potentially. And if they were to be in a second book, I would instantly buy it. 100%. I'd read it.
I think sometimes as well when authors leave like a bit of an open door, not to the extent that it's a cliffhanger, but if they leave a bit of an open door, sometimes it's quite nice to like make your own story 100%. In your head of like what you think would come next. So I wouldn't be mad if this was a standalone. But like you said, I'd read, if she wrote a second book, I'd read it.
And I think that's actually really refreshing to have, because like none of the books that we ever read are just single books. No. We never get that in the fantasy genre, which is fine because we're always in it for the long term.
Yeah. But it's just, like we're always invested with characters.
100%. But it's just nice for something new. It's refreshing, and it's really lovely. I think if it were ever to be, if it does remain to be a standalone. If people want a recommendation of like, oh, I'd like to read a bit of fantasy, but I'm a bit like unsure, that's maybe minus that we'd have to preface the knotting thing, but that's the perfect example of like a book you could recommend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like you said, if you recommend ACOTAR to somebody,
it's a big commitment.
5 books, and then they're like, oh my God, what next? And we're like, oh, Crescent City, Throne of Glass. Yeah. And then they're 16 books deep. And not only just like being so immersed in the world, it's expensive to buy these books.
100%.
So, like, when you can recommend a book like this that we had in Tesco's for like £4,
couple of quid,
like that's not an expensive thing. But like if you recommend ACOTAR to somebody and they get immersed in Sarah J. Maas's world, then they've got 16 books to buy. Tog isn't cheap. Crescent City 3, even the Kindle version was extortionate.
Yeah.
So like it would be expensive for somebody who maybe hasn't read fantasy before, and you know, like we're quite committed to buying the books. Like, we're happy to spend the money, but like if you're not into reading and you're just asking for a recommendation, I think recommending something like Bride is so much better than recommending something like ACOTAR, unless they read Bride and then were in the
wanted more
world.
I literally had that conversation with a colleague of mine like last year, where she'd seen all the hype at ACOTAR, really wants to read it, but she's more of like a crime thriller reader. And then what she said to me was like, I really want to read it, but like £35 it's £35, you know. And I'm like, I get it, like it's an expensive commitment to make, and I agree with you. I think that's what's lovely about this is they can buy it, they can read it, and if it's not for them, it's not for them. And what have they lost? A couple of quid, you know.
It's nice. Do you think Ali Hazelwood should have stayed in her own lane?
No, I don't. And I don't ever think that, like, we've used this parallel before with Rebecca Yarros, because I think they're both both romance writers who've dipped into the fantasy world. I never want to discourage an author from dipping into fantasy. Like, it's open to all, everyone come join.
Yeah, and we'll eat it up. If you write a fantasy book, like, we're going to read it.
If a like horror writer wants to, I'll try a bit of anything. But I think what Ali Hazelwood does so well is that she understands that she's primarily still a romance writer, and she's just added a little bit of fantasy. Maybe in like a few years she might decide to do a Throne of Glass size bloody book series. Lovely. But I think that's maybe where like Rebecca Yarros went a bit astray, is she tried to completely convert into this gigantic fantasy world building author. And it's not to say that she couldn't do it. It's not to say that Ali Hazelwood couldn't do it. But I just think when you haven't almost got like the reader fan base, if that makes sense, nobody knows you, you're very new as an author. And I think what Rebecca Yarros tried to do was what an author of maybe like an 8-book series has already done. Whereas I think Ali Hazelwood does that so well, is she just gives you that little bit, here's my little like taster, and it makes you want to come back for more. Maybe when you come back for more, it's much more of a fantasy book. But 100% come into this lane, Ali Hazelwood. We love you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's quite nice that she set it in like the modern world. And in like in America, like it's not like some far off land where like with different magic sources and things like that.
Agreed.
It's quite nice.
It doesn't try to do too much. I think is the way to put it.
Pretty much our favourite men are the morally grey men. And I think I said this earlier, but Lo is quite a green flag. He's quite a good guy. He kind of wants to look after his little sister, look after his pack. He wants to do the best by everybody. He tells Misery what she wants to know. He tells her that Anna is half werewolf, half human. He is very upfront with her about everything. Did you need more moral greyness from him? Or were you happy for him to just be a big green flag?
I think I wasn't expecting, like, this book was never sold to me as a male MMC as morally grey, so I wasn't expecting it. Typically from my favourite leading men, do I want more morally grey? 100%. But I was never expecting this to be one of my top 5 reads. I guess because my expectation wasn't there, it wasn't a surprise that Lo, but he's definitely not my thing because of that reason. He's just too like vanilla, I think is the way to put it.
And like I shouldn't be saying like, oh my god, green flags, go away, give me the red ones, because like, you know,
you want a bit of both.
But that's the type of people we are, isn't it? We want red flags.
I like it.
And we want to ignore those red flags.
In a book, obviously not in real life, but he was just too like
until
nice.
The end when
that one
when she confronts him
and he's really
about
mean.
being like, she's like, I know I'm your mate, and he's like, oh, you've made all this up in your head, like, sorry if I've given you the wrong impression.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
he was like, don't use werewolf terms that you don't know the meaning of. Ugh, I think there's a difference.
Don't teach her the meanings then. Don't teach
Agreed.
her about the werewolf mating if you don't want her then to use it when she's speaking to you.
I think
you condescending prick.
I completely agree. I think as well there's a difference between like morally grey and just being a dickhead.
And he was a dickhead then.
Yeah.
That wasn't like,
morally grey.
Morally grey, talk more to me, Lo. Like, I was like, no, I do not like you right now.
Morally grey is, I just killed this man because he put a hand on you.
Yeah.
Whereas Lo's just being a prick.
Yeah.
And it was really like not well explained at the end. He doesn't really apologise for it.
Yeah, and he's sort of like, I didn't want you to feel like you had to reciprocate the mating bond. You know, I wanted you to have your freedom and make your own choices. And I'm like, yeah, but you took the choice away from her by trying to put her off.
Yeah.
Like the mating bond.
Yeah.
Like, you should have just been upfront and been
You're forcing her hand to want to not accept it.
Yeah, like, give her the choice.
And she's had to fight, and she has to like fight tooth and nail for you to like, not agree, but like,
what a dick.
What if she wants to be with you?
Yeah.
Like, let her be with you. Yeah, it was like, he didn't really apologise for it either. It was really like,
yeah, it's just like happy families at the end.
Yeah,
like,
soz.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you rate this book?
I'm trying to remember what I actually rated in my review, but I think it was either a 4 or 4.5 star.
Okay.
I think definitely so high because it's just a fun read.
Yeah.
It's a vibe book, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Like we said, it's a palate cleanser after coming off the back of some of the books that we've read. I give it a 4.5. Mm-hmm. I think any book that I can read that quickly and have so much fun reading, like, is up there for me.
Definitely.
Obviously, there's a reason that I dropped it half a star. Which we've talked about.
This is the big elephant in the room that we were getting to. And why we're all really here, let's be honest.
I have the quote here. And this really made me feel uncomfortable and unwell. And I feel quite shy reading it.
But can we just say that when we discussed this before recording and you told me this is what I didn't like about this book, I was actually, when I say I'm really into it, I wouldn't say I'd like go buy another type of book like this again, but I'm not mad at it. I was fine with it.
It just made me feel a bit icky. So it's Lo speaking. And the quote is, I'm going to do it, misery. I'm going to come where I'm supposed to. His voice is barely comprehensible. I'm going to pop a knot in your tight little... A sudden shift and the pressure increases. Lo is coming. His orgasm a powerful thing that neither of us is ready for. Another wave of pleasure crashes over him as he spurts inside me and his neck strains back, eyes glazed. I'm going to pop a knot.
Yeah.
No.
You've now read that to me like 3 times and it still hits the same. This reaction is genuine. So knotting. That is really the real reason why we're all here for this book. If it weren't for the knotting, I don't think this book would have done so well. And I think everybody's heard about it or heard the like rumours or murmurings of like what this book entails. When I saw my friend's review about this, who had mentioned that this was the reason that she wasn't into this book was because she couldn't get over the knotting, I thought it was going to be way more of a thing, but it's literally at the end. Like, it's not really as much of a thing as I expected it to be. But basically, the anatomy of werewolf is that even when they're in their human form and they're banging, that once they climb the mountain, hit the top, hit that climax, that the base of their dick or like the whole thing, the base of it,
the base sort of like
expands,
swells up into a big knot so that the semen can't seep out.
That was very professional, Sam. So that's one of the reasons why Lo won't bang Misery pretty much until the very end, because she's not anatomically made not anatomically made as a werewolf that she can take the knot. But she's pretty adamant she can, and she does.
Does it just make you feel so icky?
Does it not just make you feel so icky?
I'm going to
it
pop
does.
a knot.
When I talk about it, and when I told Corey about this, and like we were talking about this book, and that was kind of like the selling point.
About dogs.
Huh?
Didn't he say like that's what dogs do?
Yeah, he informed me that apparently that's what. I don't think it's called knotting in dogs, but that's basically an anatomy of a dog when they do it. That's how it works with dogs, which put me off. But when I read it, I really didn't mind it. I was here for it. I was on board. I liked it. But when I talk about it out loud, it makes me feel icky.
Yeah.
I feel ashamed. I feel like I'm being kink shamed, but it is not. It's not a thing.
Yeah, it's
fine.
It was just strange, and it was just that wording. I'm going to.
Yeah, you didn't mind it otherwise, did you? But it was that specific wording that you didn't love. I don't mind
that that's what the anatomy is. The anatomy of a werewolf is the anatomy of a werewolf, as if it's a real thing. It was that sentence. I'm going to come where I'm supposed to. First of all, I was like, shut up, and then. I'm going to pop a knot. I was like, oh, mate, you've lost me.
No, I was fine with it. I didn't love that we had to wait till like literally the last chapter for the actual bang.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I got that, and I was like, what happened? I was like, maybe other people read a different version to me. But because this...
I got the PG version.
What version did I pick up? But I think that... Again, I don't know this, but I think so. This is a book in something called the Omegaverse, which I don't think is exclusive to Ali Hazelwood. I think it's like a genre, it's a trope. And I don't know if Ali Hazelwood's other books are Omegaverse books. I'm really not sure. I think they might be, but then I don't know. Do you have to be a werewolf to be in the... I don't know.
I don't know.
We're too old to understand this. But I think that is I wouldn't necessarily, it's called knotting, but I think when people read Omegaverse, that's what they're looking for. So maybe we're just like not, we're not into that. Like,
you need to stop saying not.
But I think it's maybe isn't our thing.
Yeah.
But I was on board, and I just think that everybody else is making me feel ashamed.
No, there's no need to be ashamed.
Agreed.
So some one-star reviews that I pulled out. This one was like strong. So this person obviously had strong feelings about this book. I want to bath misery and low in hydrofluoric acid.
Rough.
I'm like, okay, you really did not like this.
No.
I liked this book in the middle, but then I did not.
There's so many good knot puns with this.
There's so many knot puns. It's so funny. The miseries of being a hate reader, pun intended.
Wonderful.
The misery I could not help but feel reading this book. Again,
another one.
I do not care for this. All the knot jokes are just, this did not serve. Yeah, they're just, I think all the knot jokes are just so funny. But we don't agree with them. We don't, we're at the 4.5 star mark.
Yeah, we loved it. It was a really fun read.
I think any book that we can smash through in 24 hours is going to be up there for us.
Definitely. And I think that was our little Bride review, the unexpected book that we didn't think we were going to review.
Well, I think you said and I've listened to it today, that on Promise of Peridot, we're like, oh, we might do an episode on Bride.
Yeah, we weren't sure, and then it was like,
that's episode 9, so literally the next episode, we're like,
Bride, we're doing it.
Yeah,
so, it just sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think it's because we didn't expect to enjoy it, and then when we read it and we smashed through it, it was like, oh, okay.
Because I don't think we're ever going to be people, unless we like really committed to something, I don't think we're ever going to be people that's going to read something that we hate, so going to review something that we hate, unless it was like a big book that we were expecting.
Yeah, and also like
I don't
like doing negative
me
reviews.
either.
Like,
people,
especially for the authors. Like I'd rather just put nothing on Goodreads.
Agreed. That's a really contested thing in the book talk world. We might get hate for this.
But I just like, they're doing their best. They're putting their work out there. They've put a lot of time into that. And like, what, Sam Day from Wales doesn't like the book, like, and she's got a big opinion on it. Like, what education has she got? Like, do you know what English background has she got? Because I don't. Like, so I just read books for fun. I'm not here to give serious reviews.
Agreed.
And I'm not here to critique a writer's writing, because I just don't know enough about writing.
Like, this podcast we do it because it's fun.
It's called a smut and wing
wingspan. Like,
we're clearly not trying to get jobs in the editing world.
Absolutely not. So I think that like we want these episodes to be entertaining. It's not going to be fun if we just talk about a book that we like shit on the whole time.
That was shit. This line was shit. Didn't like this trope. Shit.
So that's why Bride just came out of the woodwork, because it was like, oh, we both really enjoyed this. It was a quick read. We both finished it. Let's just record it.
Yeah, and I think the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology is going to be a fun one to do as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited.
I've got like literature style questions for it, but don't care.
No, I'm here for it. I love it. I'm so excited.
So yeah, that was episode 10.
10.
Next, we're going to do a little wish list of what we hope to see from the next ACOTAR.
Yes.
And then we'll be back with back-to-back book reviews.
Yeah, so we've got the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdoms. And after that, who bloody knows?
Yeah, we'll find something.
We'll be here. Don't worry, every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thanks Thanks for listening.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at A Pod of Smut and Wingspan.
See you next week.
Bye.